Oklahoma State, BYU to Texas Tech, West Virginia, your favorite international men's basketball player or tennis player might never get to play again. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Oklahoma State crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Oklahoma State crossover. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. That's Cody Stovall of Locked On Oklahoma State, talking all things Cowboys. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. Oh, he's in an Arkansas shirt. Okay, it's the World Series. Give me a break. I'm from there. Shout out Bologna. Let's start. Your favorite international player could be gone. And that's very not good. It's going to hurt a lot of men's basketball programs, tennis programs. Like, we have seen some legendary guys come from overseas, play in the Big 12, play at Oklahoma State, play at BYU or whatever. And then now those guys, due to the NCAA's house settlement, might not see the floor again. I'll get to that more. But then we'll also go, will your legends be paid? Brandon Whedon, buckle up. Make sure your address is updated. He's about to get a check from the NCAA in back pay. It's going to change the lives of some of the legends that we know from the Big 12 and guys who played pivotal roles at different Big 12 schools. And then we'll end it with Oklahoma State, Oregon. No, not only will Oklahoma State win, they will pummel the Ducks. And Cody can tell us why. If you hit subscribe, we both get to keep our jobs. This is from Ross Dellinger. It's crazy. Charlie Baker, that's the president of the NCAA, says that international college athletes can receive revenue share from their schools in this new era. The organization, though, still has work to do on ensuring this is the case. They must seek legal counsel. They went through this entire process to settle. And at the end of it, the NCAA and the United States government were like, oh, by the way, for all of our foreign guys, our Egor Demins that come into the leagues and are massive stars, could they still do this? And they go, oh, forgot that part. Guess we'll hire some lawyers to figure it out. Cody, we are in danger with the season approaching in football for your favorite Australian punter or your favorite player in men's basketball from Latvia to not see the floor.
Well, it's actually ironic that you bring this up because the Cowboys are in this current predicament as it speaks. We've got a 6'10" center from Greece named Lefteris Montezoukas, who just a couple of years ago was top 13 on the NBA European draft board. So getting someone like that in Stillwater is a definitional game changer. So if you cannot get, and by the way, Drake, he averaged over 41.7% from the 3-point range. So he's got a little bit of that Chet Holmgren game. He is somebody that would transcend what Steve Lutz is trying to do in this upcoming basketball season. So without him, I do think the complexity of this season changes entirely off of one dude. And, you know, a sport that you didn't mention, yes, Oklahoma State tennis did compete for a national title just 2 years ago. So it is going to be effective for us there. But golf, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, Victor Hovland's absolutely cruising it. Well, he's a foreign player. Oklahoma State just won a national championship in golf, and a couple of those individuals are international players. We have intentions to continue to get the international guys in these Olympic-level sports. So this is a problem, and if the political side of the aisle ever has the intentions to do something good, this is an opportunity, right? We talk about all the time how the NCAA is sometimes a feckless, worthless entity. This is an opportunity to have the backs of the student athletes like they pretend to do at times. You have to be able to continue to grow the sport because it's good for marketability, viewership. Not to mention, we had Chuba Hubbard, running back from Canada, that rushed for over 2,000 yards. There's going to be lingering effects to all of this, and the political side of the aisle needs to find a way to get this fixed. And you are right. It's funny that the litigational aspect is coming back into this. Every time they think they're taking a positive step, they end up putting something in their mouths and going 5 steps backwards. It's absolutely wild time, Drake.
Yeah, the top comment on this is from an attorney who says, seeking legal counsel for this is not what you want to hear at all. What I'm getting from this message is, actually, let me pose it as a question, Cody. When's the last time seeking counsel went quickly for anyone? When's the last time that was a smooth, easy process where you could get to the end of the rope in fairly expedited fashion? Because you have to do that. We're playing this fall. To me, I read this and go, hey, Ross, thank you for the reporting. We need to be talking about it more so. International players, as it sits, as of today, if they wanted to play on June 18th, they couldn't do it with revenue share. The quarterback's making $1 million, and Chuba Hubbard of your university or Deklatov Molotov, your center from Greece, whoever you are, those kids are getting $0. So then they're like, okay, I could go pro in Greece. I could go pro in Italy in football, Canada in football, and just make money. Whereas in the United States, due to these tax issues and employee and 1099 and all that stuff, I can't. It only makes sense if we also pay the international kids.
But dude, you nailed it. A large portion of these dudes play some semblance of semi-professional basketball because they don't have the colleges the same the way that we do. So that Lefteris Montezukis guy I was telling you about, he's been playing semi-pro ball for like 3.5, almost 4 years now. You bring that to a college campus, that could change things. But before NIL, it didn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense, right? Because he is theoretically a professional athlete getting a paycheck to play the sport in Greece. NIL makes up for the loss of the monthly paycheck that they're already used to. So if you take that away from them, then it really changes why they would even come to America to do this. And yeah, the visa has a issue, right, with earning money because it can change the status of the visa. And now visas in and of themselves are kind of coming over a bigger microscope. It's absolutely crazy, and it's not the right time. We're trying to get college sports more visible, more viable, and we're playing these rinky-dinky in-court games still. And you're right, the litigation process, I may not be an expert when it comes to a courthouse. I've been in a time or two. And I will say, no matter what your charges are, whether they're minor, whether they're major, the continuations by the lawyers are a thing that is a practice, yeah? So you're going to hear, well, we'll come back in 3 months, 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, over and over and over. So, yeah, it feels like lawyers' jobs are to stretch things out over time. And the more time this takes, the more convoluted this whole mess is going to become. And it's just dumb.
Well, if there's one thing we've learned, we cannot trust the NCAA. If there's another thing we've learned, Locked On might be the only network covering this topic as heavily and at such volume as anyone out there in the country. I know we've done multiple shows on it, squad shows on it as well. Right. And still, there are new topics and new things to lay out here that we haven't even gotten to, including the next one. And that is Brandon Weeden getting a paycheck at his front door. That's coming up on Locked On Big 12. Locked On Oklahoma State, a crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Monarch Money. Today's show brought to you by them. Why? Because I am 24 years old, and there's one thing I don't understand. It's money. I look at my account and say, where did it all go? Between dining, entertainment, and a couple cervezas, I lose track. That's where Monarch Money is your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Complete financial command center. You stop managing your money, you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized I'm spending a ton on those cervezas. Now I budget smarter and I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, Monarch is right there, even helping you manage money with your partner, setting goals together. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year at Monarch Money. Cody Stovall of Locked On Oklahoma State, Jimmer Fredette, Brandon Weeden, RG3, Reginald Bush will all receive a payday. This is a crazy report from Ross Dellinger talking about the NCAA's House settlement, where the government said, hey, you can't keep doing what you're doing. You're going to need to actually reconcile what you've done to those who couldn't receive NIL money, $2.8 billion worth. Now, one topic we'll get to in a little bit is where that money comes from, because it's your university. Oklahoma State will pay money to the NCAA that will eventually go back to Brandon Weeden, or, I mean, it's going to go, you name your favorite Oklahoma State player, it's in his pocket. And right now, that organization, the National Collegiate Athletics Association, says they have $285 million in escrow that is sitting there waiting to be given immediately to the athletes that now deserve it per what the government is saying. A lot of eligible former athletes, majority going to Power 4, Power 5 guys, and over $100,000 for 10 years per player played. This is going to equivocally change the way that we give out revenue, because schools are going to lose money to former athletes, and former athletes are about to get a payday.
Yeah, I think this is a phenomenal decision. We just talked about some of the things in college that aren't going so well. This is one of those things that is. And another reason is the connection. I think that we could all agree, whether you have your alumni heavy hitter bad A's that have played in the NFL, having them on the sidelines, it is a big deal. It's helpful for recruiting. It's helpful for marketing. It's helping for profitability. this is yet another connection, right? So I think this is another opportunity for universities to bring back some of the old school dudes, to put them on the sidelines, to help build up the program, because they're making things right. And you are right. The university is going to have a lot of responsibility in all of this. So it's another extension of the gratitude for what you did. Especially, I love that you bring in Brandon Whedon to this. That's the last time we won a Big 12 title. Did we play for like 7 de facto ones and lose? Yes. But as far as winning that, Whedon was the one to do that. Justin Blackman, Joseph Randall, that whole crew deserves to get paid. And I do think this is going to be great for the universities. It's going to be great for them, and it's going to be great for eyeballs in recruiting moving forward.
Yeah, so the rumor's been floated out there that in the settlement, you'll likely see players from 2016 and 2024 get paid that $2.8 billion. But that is something that I don't think will hold. That's why I'm bringing the old legends into the conversation. Yeah. There's no way that you can tell Brandon Whedon or tell Jimmer Fredette or tell RG3, we can't give you that money because you played in the wrong era. It's just that's where Brandon Whedon says, oh, excuse me, I would like to sue, and immediately wins. So you're going to see the continuance of pay being given back to legends who would have made millions of dollars in NIL. And they will, again, at their doorstep, in their mailbox, freshen up that address, make sure everybody's got it. Money is coming to you. Biggest issue with this that many people are overlooking, it's the cowardice of the NCAA. This wasn't, hey, we are going to take care of this and handle it and give the money out. Our bad. We got sued and we failed you. Instead, the governing body, the governing body paid to govern, is now asking the universities to give back revenue at the end of the year directly to the NCAA so they can put it in the pockets of the old legends. Does it make sense that schools should have paid or could have paid or whatever the legends at the time through NIL or what be it? Yeah, obviously. But they would have if they could have.
There you go.
And now you're going to make them pay for this? It's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, the culpability side of this does seem to lean more towards the NCAA. But, of course, we all know, especially with their footing not being on the most solid of grounds at the current moment, they're going to have to, from a revenue perspective, probably save as much as physically possible. The cowardice is 100% factual and accurate. But nonetheless, I do think that it does at least show that they're willing to be somewhat malleable in some of these old court decisions. So maybe there's hope for the NCAA in the future. Yeah, it may not be looking good for the home team, but there's bright sides to this ridiculousness as well.
Yeah, I don't enjoy that now Oklahoma State is figuring out where its revenue yearly is going to go, whether that is the current quarterback or a former quarterback, because the NCAA dropped the ball. Have we? Man, this is complex, but I'm going to give it to you, Cody, because you're a complex guy. Have we now plenty of reason to just distance ourselves entirely from the NCAA? What purpose do they serve where we need them?
None. I've been saying this for a couple of years now, and I will appreciate some things that come from Greg Sankey's mouth, and that is one of them. He's the first one to mention it. This was what 2.5, 3 years ago, maybe even longer. He made it publicly known that we don't need the NCAA per se, right? And as time has gone on, we've realized that the minute details of attendance of class or GPAs or how scholarships are divvied up and the percentages, the little minute details seem to be the issue. And the NCAA might be good at that. So basically, the NCAA has turned into a bookkeeping operation that we know is not a necessity. So this is yet another indication to me that they understand that they're probably not going to be around all that much longer. If they thought that they were going to have a long, healthy future, they would pay out these athletes, the old school ones, out of their own pocketbooks, essentially. But they got to save money because they know they're really not going to be around much longer, at least seemingly.
Yeah, I don't see what signing some papers, because you can make the case that like the legal arm of the NCAA keeps the schools from being sued, but also the schools are in large part government funded to the point where the government would have such grip on them in a world where the governing body was the United States, in which schools would have a much tougher time breaking the rules. They're funded and monitored specifically by the U.S., more so than the NCAA being kind of that middleman in between them. And because the NCAA is a middleman, schools are able to break the law a lot, get sued themselves. I mean, we've seen schools sued on multiple occasions by different parties, and the NCAA is kind of stuck without being able to help in that department. And instead, now the NCAA itself gets sued, and then they ask the schools for money. And the school's going, well, we're also being sued by other people. And the NCAA is like, well, we can't help with that. You're thinking, so what are you helping with? You're getting sued and being charged stuff. Then we're getting sued and being charged stuff. And now we're going to give you even more money. Where do you actually help us? I don't know if I see it.
See, I think they understand that they are on life support. They're on a very thin line, and they're on a short amount of time. So I think that they're going to give a little bit of pushback occasionally to make it look like they still have teeth. But at the same point in time, I think they're also going to cave quite a bit as well, just to extend their careers as long as physically possible, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. I think they even realize that at some point in time, they're going to be unnecessary.
They kind of have to play ball.
Yes, at least to some degree, yeah.
It's vaguely the weird spot the Big 12's been put in right now with the SEC and the Big Ten breathing down your neck. You kind of have to play ball at some level as to not tick enough people off early or even late, not tick enough people off in general, that the powers that be who really hold the onus in college athletics, that those powers don't delete you, as they will likely delete the NCAA. And I mean, let's be honest with it. If the SEC and Big Ten decided tomorrow we want to delete the Big 12 somehow, they'd find a way. They have the revenue, the money, the power to do so, and they have the exact same power to delete the NCAA. So they've got to play ball. They've got to play ball and keep getting sued and causing us headache and costing us money. Coming up, Oklahoma State, Oregon. Are you telling me, Cody, that you have a winner in this game?
So I'm saying there's a chance.
Let's do it. Locked On Big 12, Locked On Oklahoma State, a crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oregon Ducks, Cody. The Oklahoma State Cowboys. I say blowout in one direction. Which direction say you?
Well, I mean, you would assume that Oregon's going to be the front runner here. But I think that when you look back at this previous season of them arguably being the best team in the regular season, going 12-0.
Sure.
They didn't find a way to get it done when it mattered. And I'm not saying that Mike Gundy is the greatest of all time, but I will say he's got almost a 58% win percentage as the underdog. That number is the same essentially whenever he goes out on the road. The seasons that Oklahoma State overperforms are the seasons where we're projected to be at the bottom half of the league. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, those are the years that Mike Gundy comes up out of nowhere and we have a magical season. Not to mention the fact Dylan Gabriel is very underappreciated, and I don't think they're going to realize that until this season takes fold. Dante Moore in the spring game looked horrendous, Drake. That Dante Moore, I know spring games don't necessarily mean a whole heck of a lot, right, as fall progresses. But if that Dante Moore shows up, he doesn't even start in Stillwater, bro. They lost their starting running back. They lost 4 offensive linemen. They lost their 2 best defensive linemen. They lost 4 of their top 5 wide receivers. And a large portion of the dudes that they expect to fill the void are backups. Is that a bad thing? No. Is Oregon great at development? Yes. But it's unproven. It's untested. And that is yet another reason why I think Oklahoma State is going to have a benefit here. We open the season with UT Martin. Are we going to show anything to them? No. Do we know what our defense is going to look like? Absolutely not. Do we know our offense? We have no clue, buddy. So that means Oregon's going to have absolutely no film whatsoever to prepare for Oklahoma State. And when you have a quarterback that runs a 10-600 meter and a sub 4.40, you have to mathematically account for that. So how do they account for something that they can't find on film? How do they account for the fact that the defense is now an SEC-style defense with a lot of NFL things plugged into it? The adaptation for both teams is not going to show up in week 2. So it's like, shooting craps or throwing a dart at a dartboard. You don't know what you're going to get. And I think that actually is beneficial for Oklahoma State. And lastly, Drake, Oregon is very arrogant. Always have been, always will be. They will underestimate Oklahoma State, full stop. The fact that they're going to look at the statistics last year and say, well, that was the 138th ranked defense in America. We're going to stomp on them. Newsflash, you don't have Dylan Gabriel. You did bring in a nice tight end. You did bring in Evan Stewart, phenomenal potential wide receiver from Texas A&M. I like some of those gets. And Bear Alexander, probably a good addition. But they have no idea what they're going to look like. and they have no idea what we're going to look like. All I know is we've got former 5-star All-Americans like J.K. Johnson from Ohio State. We got a dude from LSU. We got Mordecai McDaniel from Florida. We got Jadamian Bradley from Tennessee. If you're looking at the stars and the ratings and the potential, Oklahoma State finally has all of that. If that potential shows up, Oregon's disrespectful attitude could end up biting them in the rear end.
Oklahoma State at the quarterback position. Does it matter? At BYU, I would argue that the defense matters. I would argue that the offensive line matters and that your running back matters. You know, it's special teams.
Yeah.
They didn't win because Retzlaff was great last year. It's why his loss might not be the worst thing in the world or the end of the world. Oklahoma State, could you argue the same this season?
I think you very well could. I think, again, Haas Haney, put this in perspective. Josh Hoover had a phenomenal season. Yeah, Josh Hoover had a top 3 Big 12 season, a top 25 NCAA collective season. But yet somehow Haas Haney was so talented that they were pulling Josh Hoover out of the game to put Haas Haney into running packages. Mm-hmm. Did he throw the ball? No, but I think that works out in our favor. They have to respect his speed. Whenever you have a quarterback that can run up and down the field with your fastest wide receivers, that's a problem. And then you have to take into consideration Zane Flores, your traditional 6'3", 220-pound quarterback that also runs a 4.5 40. The Nebraska Player of the Year, Gatorade Player of the Year, still the all-time passing leader in the state of Nebraska. That guy is just waiting to burst out of the scene. So between those two quarterbacks, I don't know what you prepare for. And we changed our offense. We're not going to do the old school concepts that we were using to benefit Ollie Gordon. It's going to go back more to an east-west directional, zone blocking scheme, cutbacks for the running game. This is going to look entirely different. Doug Meacham was the guy that ran the Brandon Whedon, Justin Blackman show. Yeah. He's also the guy that ran the Trayvon Boykin TCU show. He is now bringing this recruiting acumen to Stillwater, which he's from. He blocked. He was an offensive lineman for Mike Gundy, Barry Sanders, Thurman Thomas back in the day, bro. He brought that connection home. The recruiting is showing out, and the expectations in Stillwater are going to increase. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. Oregon, they have a lot to prove, but we have more to prove. Todd Grantham, coming over from the NFL, has to prove to people that the Florida instances were not always going to be a career definition. These coaches are here to send a message, and they know good and daggone well to continue this top 25 hovering recruiting class. You got to win these ball games. So this is potentially a Super Bowl approach for us, and this is going to be a regular game for them. I love it.
Is it fair to say if Oregon loses this game, they still have a very good shot at the college football playoff?
Yes, well, especially if we take that and catapult it into a successful Big 12 title run. And I'm not saying that we're going to win a Big 12 title, Drake, nor am I saying that we're even going to get there. But what I am saying is our record is very, very much like 2023. Were we the most talented team? Not necessarily, but the schedule's set up right. We won a lot of close games. A lot of things fell in our favor. The same thing happens this year. We don't play BYU. We don't play Arizona State. We don't play a lot of the heavy hitters in the league that have traditionally been a problem for us. So I think it's going to be a good season. And I think Oregon is going to catapult us into a different hemisphere.
Sure. If it's fair to say that Oregon could still make the college football playoff after beating Oklahoma State, I want to emphasize, this kind of builds off your point, the idea of Oklahoma State going to the college football playoff after a loss to Oregon is very tough for me to wrap my mind around, which is not a bad thing. It just proves, again, this game means exponentially more for Oklahoma State, and I don't think it puts you at a disadvantage.
Hey, no, I think you're spot on there because the perception nationally on the Big 12 is always going to be down until we do something to prove it, right? TCU's got to beat Michigan, and they've got to win a natty. Arizona State has to beat Texas and make a little bit of we're not doing that. So the Big 12 hasn't lived up to the expectations yet. So we definitely have to do that. But if you lose to Oregon at the end of the season, it could be used against you. However, if you beat Oregon, they're going to say that there's nothing else on the schedule that's going to be comparable to a win over Oregon. So it could be a huge swing to getting us in a final CFP style of spot if it comes down to that.
I think so. And to clarify, I don't think what you're saying, again, is that Oregon State Oregon or Oregon State will necessarily be locks for the College Football Playoff, and Oklahoma State won't either. And even that Oklahoma State won't be a lock for the Big 12 championship. Even after beating Oregon, it could propel you to a championship caliber season or a very quality season, but maybe not necessarily a conference title win. But this is the kind of victory that puts Mike Gundy back in control, at least.
And these are the kind of victories that we have an expectation of. Mike Gundy performs in these moments. The years that we're projected to win 10, 11 games, for some reason, it never happens. The years that we're projected to win 4, 5, 6, 7 games, those are the years that Mike Gundy does crazy stuff. And he's approaching this entirely different. He's CEO role Mike Gundy now. He has a head coach of the defense at Todd Grantham that he's paying power for head coach money to coordinate and run everything. And I think you're seeing that on the field. You're seeing that in the portal. You're seeing that in recruiting. So I just think that Mike Gundy needs to capitalize. If there's any downside to Mike Gundy's career, it's been potentially lack of capitalization. We've had massive moments, and then the next season we didn't exactly, expound off of it. This is that time for Mike Gundy, and I think the Board of Regents fiasco is going to actually end up being a good thing, because this new staff is something we've never had before. We never even tried to get a staff like this before, Drake.
Yeah. Oklahoma State's in a good spot, staff-wise especially. I think that the investment in the staff and even saying, hey, Mike Gundy, we know you're the guy, you're the head coach, but you're not God. You can't be God.
He took a haircut. Like, he took
exactly
$1.25 million haircut, which isn't the big deal, but he took a $15 million off of his buyout. So I do think that Mike Gundy even realized this is a prove-it moment for him, and hopefully he has a youthful exuberance about him that we haven't seen in a long time to bring us back to where the expectations should be. There needs to be a flag bearer in the Big 12 at some point in time. Oklahoma State, Utah, K-State, Tech, it doesn't matter who it is, but I think out of everybody in the league, the logical choice is Oklahoma State. The only team that won more games in the Big 12, including Texas, was OU. It went OU, Oklahoma State, then everybody else. Whenever you put that in perspective, we need to capitalize. This is a capitalization moment. Oregon would be a capitalization game for Mike Gundy, and it could send the trajectory for 2025 into that Big 12 title CFP conversation.
No doubt. That is Cody Stovall at All Day O State on Twitter. Stovall, impeccable stuff with Locked On Oklahoma State as well. We will see you on Thursday night as a part of the Big 12 Squad Show. This has been and always will be a combination, a crossover, if you will, of Locked On Oklahoma State and Dose Grande.
I bet you do listen to No Doubt. You've got that Gwen Stefani fan in you. I see you rocking your Arkansas mullet gear. Yeah, you're rocking some Gwen.